Welcome to the Mind of Business Success podcast. I'm your host, Alicia Cramer. Our guest today is Mickie Kennedy. We are going to talk about PR. Welcome to the show, Mickie.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So for anyone who does not know what PR means, and I'm going to assume that most of our audience does, let's start by talking a little bit about what you do for business owners, authors, speakers to help them get exposure and build their businesses.
Right. So basically what eReleases does is we distribute press releases via email, which is how we began in the name eReleases, and also over the newswire through PR Newswire. The interesting thing about that is PR Newswire charges over $1,000 to move a national press release of 500 or more words, and we're able to do that for substantially less. And the reason is they approached me several years ago and said, why not issue our releases over their network? And I pointed out that my customers are really small businesses, entrepreneurs, and they couldn't afford to go over the newswire. And so they looked at my customer base and saw that it was not a segment that they were serving, and they felt like supporting it. And we crafted it in a way that it would be a win-win, so that our releases generally go out next business day by default, so that their overnight editorial team, which usually doesn't have a lot of work, can work on them. So there's no additional labor and stuff like that. So it's a really great value add to allow my clients to get both an email distribution as well as that newswire distribution over PR Newswire. The reason that's so important is because the newswire disseminates their content to lots of journalists who have access to the feeds. They can customize the feed so they're just capturing the type of news that they're really interested in. And it's a great way for journalists looking for stories to go and sort of dive into their industry and figure out, is there something new or newsworthy or topical that they could pick up on? And as a result, for just spending a few $100s, you could ultimately get 12 to 16 articles written about you, not your press release syndicated and duplicated on other websites, but an actual article that was written from the ground up about your company or about you.
That is amazing. So I haven't told this story on this podcast before, but I think it's a really good one that complements what it is that you offer. So when I was starting my general hypnotherapy practice, I was simultaneously doing business development consulting work as kind of like my side hustle. And that's what got me further into doing consulting and coaching work. But one of my clients was, she had a PR service. She basically wrote press releases for people, and then she taught people how they could get their press release out to the media. That was a gift from the universe, I tell you what, because I learned how to write press releases. So when I was launching my hypnotherapy practice, which was a local brick and mortar hypnotherapy practice, I was able to write my own press release and send it to the local media. And they did pick up the story and they wrote an article about me. And that literally launched my hypnotherapy practice. So I am a huge advocate for press releases and getting media exposure. It helps with not only exposure, but credibility as well. And the service that you're offering, I think, is sort of almost a hidden gem. A lot of business owners don't take advantage of it. I don't think they realize how they can leverage it as a marketing tool when done correctly. And we're not talking about just spamming out press releases for every little thing. It has to be newsworthy, but to have someone interview you as opposed to like you said, just syndicating your press release out all over the internet, there's a huge difference. Now, when Forbes contacted me to interview me, that was huge for me, and I know a lot of people are out there and they're Forbes contributing authors like on the blog and stuff like that. And that can be great for building credibility. There's just something so powerful about being interviewed by the media. So I'm going to hand this back over to you, and I would love your 2 cents on this whole topic.
Well, you mentioned leverage before, and I think that's one of the most important things about PR. For a small amount of money and putting together, crafting a strategic press release, you could potentially get lots of articles written about you. I've had a couple of extreme examples. One last year for something called the Dining Bond Initiative. It was a very short-lived project that was just designed to help restaurants that were closed during the pandemic. And it was like a perfect storm. There was so much negative news out there that here was something that was positive, and it allowed anybody to nominate their favorite local restaurant. And if they accepted, you could just give them money that would go directly, immediately to them, and it would be secured through gift certificates. And so it got over 150 articles written about it. The Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, New York Times. It resulted in tens of thousands of customers. There was millions of dollars of revenue that was directed towards these restaurants through that project, all for one press release that would have cost under $300. I donated the services, the distribution to them. That's an extreme example, but I think it's a good metaphor for what happens with PR. If you have an engaging and newsworthy topic, you can easily get several articles written about you. On average, I say a very successful press release is usually between 4 and 12 articles that are written about you. And it does happen. And with some of my clients, it just happens almost every single time they do a press release. And I feel like the most important aspect about it is just being strategic. And a lot of people are like, well, what does that mean? What's strategic? And it's like being newsworthy. And a lot of people will immediately say, well, I'm not newsworthy. I had a local auto repair shop in Pennsylvania reach out to me once, and they were looking for links from auto trade publications. They had an SEO guy, and they said the easiest way to rank this new website would be to get auto trade links. And they said, reach out to Mickie, he might know something. So I told him to do an industry survey. And they're just like, well, we're just an auto repair shop. We're not experts at anything. And I said, anybody can be the author of a survey or study. And so I directed them to contact a local independent trade association. It was actually it was a national one, but it was for independent auto repair shops. And about 800 respondents, completed the survey. The trade association was very supportive of it because they would get mentioned in the press release as well, sort of a co-branding opportunity there. And it did really well. And what went very viral with them was, I always say, when you're doing a survey, it doesn't hurt for the last couple of questions to put something left field or a little outside the box there. And we put what was the strangest thing a customer left in their car while being repaired. And it was an open couple of lines where they could just put an anecdote or a story. And that's what really resonated, because there were a lot of little wacky stories that people shared. Wasn't statistically relevant, from the idea of a survey or study, but it did extremely well. They got over a dozen auto trade publications, I think over 30 newspapers, most of them small, but their local newspaper covered it as well. And it was a huge success for them and their goal of getting links back to their website. And so, that's what can be done for just a couple $100. I mean, it sounds daunting to do a survey or study, but there's services like SurveyMonkey or Google Forms, and all you have is one link that you just get someone to promote it to you. If you have your own audience, that's great. But if not, these smaller trade associations are very willing to share it with their members. In most cases, if you mention that you're going to be doing a national press release over the wire, and that you will cite them as well.
Wow. So that was a really, really, really cool thing to share. Now, if people are not thinking to themselves, I just got some really valuable marketing advice. Let's talk a little bit about your services, because right now people are saying to themselves, oh man, I need to start getting some press releases out. So do you write the press releases for your
We do.
clients?
We do
Okay.
offer writing services, but I often tell people that usually after we've written one, you'll want to do it yourself. Press releases, in their very nature, are very simplistic documents. It's a headline, opening paragraph. Those are the two most important elements. I always say to be sure to include a really great quote in the press release. I've actually had clients come up with a really interesting story that they tell in their press release, and an article then gets written a few days later, and we know it was inspired by the press release, but the company was never mentioned. And I always tell people, this isn't some sinister thing. What happened is a managing editor reviewed the article, probably saw this small little company mentioned and said, why are they mentioning them? That doesn't make any sense, and crossed them out. But if there was a great quote in there that you couldn't easily paraphrase and really succinctly cemented what was being promoted or announced in the release, the managing editor or whoever's in charge actually might circle it and put an exclamation mark. Like, that's a powerful quote. So you will definitely be preserved in that article by having a great quote. So many people take quotes for granted and just put a safe little innocuous quote, but that's the opportunity you have to really shine and stand out and ensure that you get into an article. You want to have a press contact, and that's pretty much it as far as the press release goes. So I always tell people to try to write the press release themselves. If you contact our office, we'll review any press release before you place an order. And even if you don't end up placing an order with us, maybe you just want to send it to your local media, you could send it to us. We'll review it, allow us one business day to get back to you. But that's just something we do to help people out. And again, there's no cost for something like that. We'll give you a good assessment of what we think about it. And most of the services that we offer are just distribution. I have helped a few clients directly, like the local auto repair shop and some other clients in a little more strategic stuff. But most of my time for those opportunities are full. But I do have a strategy class that I put together for my customers. I'm trying to get my customers to do more strategic press releases. So many of them are doing the safe, innocuous press release, and occasionally they get a hit, and sometimes they don't. So I put together this masterclass, less than an hour video training. It's accessible to anyone, and if you or your listeners want to take advantage of it, it's at ereleases.com/plan, PLAN, and it's completely free. And I guarantee that after you've gone through it, you'll probably have at least 6 ideas what types of releases you could be doing about yourself and your business. So many people feel, I'm not newsworthy, I'm not important, I'm not some big company. But what you have to realize is journalists are curators, and they don't want to promote the big companies. The big companies can afford to advertise. It's the small little gems that they want to share and spotlight with their audience. And they, acting as gatekeepers, love to promote small businesses. So it's a great opportunity for people. And don't let that imposter syndrome prevent you from going out there and claiming a little bit of the exposure that you deserve.
Okay, so many great takeaways here. This is a really good segue because you just mentioned imposter syndrome. Now, you've covered a couple of different mindset hurdles that entrepreneurs likely have to overcome in order to utilize this strategy in their business. The whole part about not being newsworthy and just being some small little, nobody, or whatever the mindset issue is there. I would love to shine the spotlight on you as the business owner and find out from you what mindset obstacles you personally had to overcome in order to get to where you are today. And I don't expect the entire backstory because I know we all have plenty,
Right.
But maybe something that is just coming up into your conscious awareness right now that you'd love to share with us.
I think for me, one of the biggest mindset hurdles I had to get over was I'm not a good manager. I should not be in charge of employees. And I had terrible turnover in my company. I was never happy with my staff. I had a HR consultant who works with large companies, but we were in a marketing group. And as a courtesy, she says, Mickie, I'll figure out what's wrong with your business. And so she did. And she came back and said, it's you. She says, your staff are great. All the customers will talk about how great the customer service and experience is. And the only person that's really dissatisfied is you. And the staff hate the micromanaging that you do. And so I tried to help myself and I couldn't. So in April of 2015, I told the office that I'm leaving and I'm going to be working on strategy and marketing at home. And I'm leaving them in capable hands with a managing editor who has the perfect discipline for managing people. She's like a mother, but she can also, steer people the way she has to. And most of the people that were there when I left are still there. And before that, we were lucky to keep someone for a year to 2 years. And now it's going on like 6, 7 years or more for some of these people. So that was a big mindset that I had to get over. That's not my expertise. It's actually a deficiency of mine. And so I just had to get out of my own way, or else I was just going to hurt the business even more.
It takes a lot of courage to be able to admit something like that to yourself. And, especially smaller businesses or newer businesses where we're wearing all the hats. It can be very, very challenging to trust handing that power over to other people. And I've seen over the many years that I've been working with clients, sometimes there are just simply things you should not be doing. If you are not a good writer, you should not be doing your copywriting. If you are not a good manager, you should not be managing your team. There's just certain things where, people don't want to let go. And it's the very thing that's bottlenecking you, the very thing that is slowing you down from the growth that you could have. So it's nice when someone like you comes out and you share something with, like that, because it gives other people permission to say, wait a second, I can see that this is an area in my business. And it doesn't mean that you have to go and hire a leadership coach to try to retrain you to be someone or something that you're not. There's always a solution. I always tell my clients, set yourself up to win. You don't have to change who you are to be successful. You just have to learn who you are. And then you have to work with that in a way that helps you to achieve your goals. Certainly doesn't mean that there's not some work that you maybe need to do, but so that's awesome. Mickie, I know you shared the URL with for your masterclass, but can you share with our listeners what your website is and how they can learn more about your services?
Sure. So the website's ereleases.com. All my social media is on the lower right of that page. LinkedIn's a great way if you wanted to reach out to me personally. I do check that at least once a week. But I do encourage anyone who visits the website to chat or make a phone call to the staff. It's just editors. There's no salespeople. There's no quotas or commissions or anything like that. We generally will honestly have a discussion with you about PR and give you a good assessment of whether we feel it would be a good fit for you. Again, that masterclass is another great example of taking advantage and seeing if it gets your mind flowing into some newsworthy ideas for you. And that was at ereleases.com/plan, PLAN. And I just encourage you to consider press releases, consider PR. If you are going to do it, I recommend a proper PR campaign of 6 to 8 press releases to see if it works for you. And, that is a little bit of a budget. You can do that for under $2,000, probably under $1,500 through a service like ours doing 6 releases. And that would give you, if they're strategic press releases, that'll give you a really strong indicator of whether PR is going to ultimately work for you. You should have a couple of those releases result in actual articles about you, which is, going to give you a big credibility boost. And the traffic that you get from that is usually high converting traffic. And if you share that link with your leads, especially, it will convert a lot of them as well. Just seeing you on another media website where a journalist has selected you and is sharing your story is a huge boost of credibility and goes a long way to making people feel at ease with, this is the company I want to work with, or this is the person that I want to work with.
Awesome. Lots of good stuff here. So many good takeaways. Were there any other final parting thoughts you had for us before we end for today?
I don't think so. I think that the most common element that I see among people is that imposter syndrome, where they just feel like they're not important, they're not special. And I challenge people that there's a reason that you've set up your business in the way that you've set it up, or you're marketing what you have. If you just felt like you were selling the same thing that dozens of other people were selling in the exact same way with the exact same messaging, I don't think you would be doing it. And so there is something unique. You do have a story to tell, and I would encourage you to own that story and get out there and promote it.
Love that. That is a really great way to end this segment. I want to thank you again, Mickie, for you really did share some really valuable takeaways. So I sincerely appreciate that.
You're very welcome.
And thank you to all of our listeners. Remember, we are doing this for you. If you haven't already subscribed, please make sure you do so. And until next time, we will see you in the next episode.